drone came down crashing in front of all these kids. It's also a flying projectile that is going at several hundred RPM flying around your face.
Greg Reverdiau, a leader in the intersection of traditional aviation management and the rapidly growing drone industry, managing flight training programs, leading UAS education at the helm of the Pilot Institute.
I think the Part 107 certificate is the certificate to be dangerous out there.
How can agencies move beyond basic certification to cultivate truly competent and operational ready drone pilots? What would you say?
I think the standards like NIST, where you have to do certain things, you can check them off in a certain amount of time, that is a true measurement of being proficient, in my opinion. But at one point, you have to do more. You have to...
Welcome to Dronecast, rethinking public safety one drone at a time, a podcast by DroneSense. We explore real-world applications of drones in emergency response, offering a close examination of evolving trends in drone technology and its impact on public safety. I'm your host, Joe Kearns, Strategic Partnership Manager here at DroneSense. And hey, as you're listening, I'd love to hear from you. Maybe there's a story or a challenge from your own experience that resonates, or is there a topic you'd like me to cover in future episodes? Reach out to us on LinkedIn by searching for Dronecast, rethinking public safety one drone at a time, or visit DroneSense.com/Dronecast to share your thoughts. Your feedback helps shape the show, and you might just inspire our next episode. Now, let's dive into today's conversation on advancing public safety through drones. Welcome to Dronecast. Today, we're honored to have Greg Reverdiau with us today, a leader in the intersection of traditional aviation management and the rapidly growing drone industry. With over a decade of experience in managing flight training programs, leading UAS education, Greg is now at the helm of the Pilot Institute, where he's helping thousands of drone pilots gain the knowledge and skills they need to succeed in this evolving field. Greg's career spans from his early days in manned aviation management into his influential role into academic UAS programs, including his time as the program chair at the Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University. As co-founder of the Pilot Institute, Greg has worked tirelessly to provide top-tier online training and certification for both manned and unmanned pilots. Today, we'll dive into Greg's extensive experience, his vision for drone training in the public safety, and his insights on how unmanned systems are transforming the aviation industry. Welcome to Dronecast, Greg. It's great to have you.
And thanks for having me, Joe. I'm super excited about the conversation.
Excellent. Well, good stuff. I mean, this is just, I have to say, like, this is twofold having both of us have this conversation. Way in the past, I've used a lot of your training programs on my own accord to gain like a Part 107. So such a great moment to have you here. Real excited about this. Well, let's go ahead and dive into some of these opening questions at the moment. Greg, with such a strong background in traditional manned aviation management, what first drew you to the world of unmanned aerial systems, or UAS?
You know, it's funny, the Phantom 4 just retired, the Phantom line retired. Well, that's kind of what brought me into the drone world. I bought the Phantom 1 when this thing came out. It was just so cool. You know, having flown airplanes for a long time, going on 22 years now flying airplanes, having this view, you know, from the air, this eagle view that you can really only get from an airplane, all of a sudden you could get it from this drone on this controller, and you could go and fly pretty low, which I can't do with my airplane. It was just such a freeing, you know, moment, and it was just so exciting to be able to do this almost for free, right? It's so expensive to fly airplanes, to rent an airplane, and there's a lot of areas you can't go. And so this was just a great way for me to transition. And then as soon as I flew these things, I was like, man, there's got to be a way to educate pilots. It's going to be, I knew this was going to be a big thing. And of course, I wasn't the only one. We all knew as soon as we flew that this was going to be the future. And I wanted to bring my knowledge of aviation to drone pilots and be able to share what I had learned over the years to make sure that we were all sharing the airspace. That still is my goal today, is make sure that we all share the airspace.
That's great. And now you're experienced in manned aviation. How did it influence the way you approached drone training and operations?
Yeah, manned aviation has been around for so long. If you think about 60, 70 years at least that we've been doing something really solid with manned aviation. And why relearn everything that we've learned there? There are so many things that we can transfer over to the drone side. A drone is an aircraft. If it's a fixed wing, if it's a multi-rotor, it flies in the airspace and it is just like an airplane. So this was a kind of an easy transition in a way to go ahead and talk about drones to people in general. And the flight controls are a little bit different, but overall the ecosystem is still the same.
Nice. And I always say something, and I think you're hitting on it too. It's like that first moment when you get that drone up in the air. It's that perspective that you get, right? And I mean, sure, like manned aviation, obviously, but you get this second world that's closer and more approachable. And it's I still remember that first flight moment. And I'm sure your experience was the same.
Oh yeah, and then as a flight instructor, I used to just spend time looking outside the window just to see the ground. There are things that you just see completely differently from the air. A funny thing, I grew up in a different country. I grew up in France, and I went back to visit my parents. I lived there for at their house for about 16 years, and I flew my drone over there, and I had never seen my little village in that bird's eye view ever in the past. And all of a sudden, you get a completely different perspective of where certain houses are, certain points are that you just grew up around, and it just looks completely different. So that was a couple of years ago, and that was just really eye opening for me. The power that drones have, getting this perspective.
That's awesome. I share this with you too. I remember getting up in just like a park nearby my house, and I was like, "Whoa! I didn't know they shaped this in like sacred geometry. They did this pattern here. How would I ever know this?" And it's that perspective. That's awesome. Love it. Now, you've played such a pivotal role in shaping UAS education, both in the academic level and through Pilot Institute. How do you see the role of education and structuring training evolving in the drone industry, particularly when it comes to public safety applications?
I mean, education is everything, right? We have to spend our first few steps when we fly the drones. We have to do it with somebody or a team that knows what they're doing. This is what's going to shape the way that you operate in the future. So I often hear. I go to conferences, right? And there is a track on how to do this and how to do that, but there's really never an educational track or training track. Training is always kind of secondary when we think about it. So I want to make sure that folks go and do the training as like the number one. The very first thing that you should be doing in your department, we're talking about public safety, right? This should be the first thing that we do is we put people through training. We don't just give them a drone. We actually give them some ground training first to explain to them the rules and explain to them, how this is going to work. And then we can do the hands-on training. But there's so much that needs to be done on the ground first before we even get up in the air. We have so many regulations these days. And especially on the public safety side, regulations are even different. And I know we're going to talk about the COA, which is now renamed, but all these things that you get a COA, you have to read all the details of that COA, right? So you have to train your employees on how to follow that COA very strictly to make sure that they don't go and do something that's going to put your department in jeopardy. There's so much liability on the public safety side of things, right? You guys are in the public eye, and so much visibility. Every time you're going to do something stupid or something that is out of the norm, it's going to be extremely visible. So training should always, always be number one. Now, how training has evolved, this has been actually a great thing. We've seen departments get started when I look 5, 6, 7 years ago, where there was not a whole lot of training. Everybody was kind of trying to figure it out. And then now we have states like Texas, where I see people getting together and exchanging information and having standards created and wanting to, yeah, exactly. This is like very exciting because Now
It's
we're
so
starting to
exciting. It's
see,
that community element, right? Like this is
yes,
something that is so it's woven across all of these episodes of Dronecast is community, and the community that needs to happen to be able to share this information or be able to like pass on what new technology, how it works, how it's so. I mean, it is all about the community. I love hearing that.
it's all about the community, and we see people sharing and not keeping the information to themselves, which could be a trend, right? You could see people, hey, we've spent all this work getting this off the ground, and we're not going to share it. We're going to let you figure it out on your own. But no, it's actually almost the opposite, where people want to share and they want to help other departments, small departments. We see people coming in. I just went to the conference in Burnet, Texas, in March, and you have people that are showing up. They're a team of two, and they're sitting down and asking the big teams that are out there, hey, how do you do this? How do you do that? And there's so much information being exchanged. So I love to see this. This is something that has been needed for a very long time. I still think we are ways from having a national standard. I don't know that we'll ever have a national standard. I also sometimes question whether we need a national standard, or if every state has their own way of operating, and it's going to depend on the terrain, right? Somebody in Arizona, where we are, in the mountains, is going to operate completely differently than somebody who's in Florida, for example, that has a completely different landscape to evolve around, where they have a much busier airspace maybe, and they have a lot more people, a lot more density of population than we do here in Prescott, Arizona. So, a national standard is nice, but I also like the idea of the states working together to create something that makes sense for that specific region.
It's a really good point, and I see that, like having each state kind of cultivate what works and maybe take a risk of doing something a little bit differently, or maybe being more it is actually, and it's like, I'm in Colorado, where yes, we got a lot of awesome stuff happening here, but maybe we're not as progressive as say Florida is, right? And it's just interesting. So yeah, good point there.
And also, everybody has different natural disasters, right? Florida has hurricanes, and we have forest fires here, and operating in those environments is completely different. It's just a different response plan than you would have. So, I think it's great. It's great to have seen it evolve over the years, and I know it's continuing to evolve. We see more associations that are also getting built up. I mean, LIDA has been around for a long time, but LIDA, as leading the whole law enforcement side of public safety and getting stronger and stronger. They just had a conference in Ogden, Utah, and that was a massive success. And it's great to see this, people getting together and learning from each other.
Yes, I love it. Well, Greg, let's dive into some big questions here, or maybe some big topics. I know there's all this certification, like a certificate that you can get, the Part 107, right? For those that don't know, but there's some more. There's a lot more information beyond that. So let's dive in. So the FAA has the Part 107 certificate. It's a necessary starting point, but insufficient for the demands of public safety missions. How can agencies move beyond basic certification to cultivate truly competent and operational ready drone pilots? What would you say?
That's a great question, and you're right. I think the Part 107 certificate is the certificate to be dangerous out there. It gives you enough to go out and know the basic rule. I mean, let's face it. When I compare this to the manned aircraft side, which we've talked about, we have ground school on the manned aircraft side, and then you have to go to a flight school in order to do the flight training, right? So Part 107 is the ground school. It gives you the theoretical knowledge. It doesn't mean that you know how to operate the drone necessarily. So it gives you enough to get to that next step. The next step is going to be dependent on the type of operation that you do as a public safety agency. If you're somebody who is in a SWAT team, for example, the training is going to be different than if you're a firefighter. And so that training has got to be catered to the type of operation that you do. And that's why it's a bit more difficult sometimes to provide this training for operations like us, because it is very specific to the type of operation that you do. And NIST has done a great job. We haven't talked about NIST yet, but NIST has done a great job at creating standards that can be applied, I think, across the board on the public safety side of things. Not only public safety, by the way, on the commercial side of things as well, but it's a repeatable way to measure progress, to measure proficiency, and to create like standards for a department. So I would highly recommend that folks that are starting or that are looking to take it to the next level, if they're not using NIST, to go look into NIST, because it's something that we should all get behind. Personally, I think the FAA should adopt NIST standards and have them as part of somewhat of a check ride kind of thing that goes along with Part 107. Unfortunately, I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think the FAA has the appetite for doing anything like this, but we don't need the FAA, right? We don't need the FAA to do this. We have agencies, we have leadership on a lot of different large departments in the country that can take on the lead to make this happen. And so we shouldn't let the FAA just drive everything. I don't think it's 100% necessary. So NIST is definitely one thing. And then get trained on aircraft-specific platforms. So if you're flying a DJI, if you're flying a Skydio, if you're flying something else, it's all going to look slightly different. You have to be familiar with your aircraft. Again, I go back to my man aircraft training, right? If I'm flying in a Cessna 172, I'm getting a checkout from an instructor for several hours to get familiar with that aircraft. I know the checklist, I know the performance, I know what the aircraft can and can't do, and I'm going to fly it safely after a few hours. Well, the same thing should happen. You're trained to fly a multi-rotor platform or even a fixed-wing platform, then get platform-specific training to make sure that you're proficient with that platform. Proficiency is another big thing. If you're doing a flight training program right now, make sure that you have proficiency checks throughout the training. The initial training is one thing. After a couple of months, if you're not flying, even if you're flying, you should get proficiency training. Every 2 years, I have to go with a flight instructor and I have to get my certificate current again to make sure that I know my stuff. We should have the same thing in drones. I would even say in drones, we should do it more often. We should do it every year. We should have a recheck. If you have a public safety department, you should have a recheck every year, because chances are your pilots are not flying every single day, and these skills, they deteriorate pretty quickly. So platform-specific training, be able to handle the aircraft in emergency situation, it's also a big thing. Like, what do you do? There was a video that came out of this conference. I don't remember which conference it was, but a Leaf, I think it was in England, actually. I saw that on LinkedIn. They were flying indoors, and then a bag or a leaf or something went on the lens of the drone, right? And they were flying FPV indoors. And imagine that this is a real life mission. You have somebody stuck in a house maybe, and you have to do overwatch, and all of a sudden you get something that blocks the view of your camera. Well, they were smart enough that they knew where they were, situational awareness. They dropped the aircraft a little bit closer to the ground. They got that wind draft from the ground, and they were able to remove the object from in front of their lens. Quick thinking, but those things you only get when you practice, when you get out there and you do different scenarios. And so yeah, sorry, long-winded answer, but that's I think all these things need to be put in place.
Quick break to highlight whether you're flying, sharing, or managing your drone program. DroneSense has everything you need. It's hardware agnostic, so it works with a variety of drones, sensors, and other hardware, giving you ultimate flexibility. And with the ability to collaborate across agencies securely, DroneSense helps you scale from one drone to 100 plus, supporting you in everything from routine calls to disaster response. To learn more and get started, check out the link in the description. No, I 100% agree with you too. And for one, I mean, like, right, even just that moment of, hey, here's a very high stress situation that you need to perform optimally. Here's the drone that you had training on 6 months ago. Go. And like, you have to be ready, and very ready. And then, like, we were talking about this before, even before this podcast, we were talking about the increase of technology right now and how it's just blowing up, and there's so much going on that you have to constantly be training or flying and so on. And sure, maybe some video game training is okay, but no, I mean, you got to be out in the field and seeing these real life scenarios. And I mean, I know you and I have had a lot of flight experience and understanding what happens when maybe one prop fails, or birds go after it, or maybe a whole swarm of bees decide to swarm your drone. All sorts of random real life scenarios that you have to have that situational awareness and just muscle memory sometimes, right? And knowing and picking up each controller. Maybe it's from the same manufacturer, but the toggle is this way, or the control is a little bit shaped differently. So you have to have that real world scenario.
I have a great example on the muscle memory thing. We have a robot dog, which I know some agencies have out there as well, right? And it's a Unitree, and we use it for way different purposes. We use it for marketing purposes. When
you
we go
attach
to
like
trade
a
shows.
giant assault rifle on top, right, or a flamethrower? No,
Yeah, and then force people to come to the booth. That's right. No, but we use it to hand out brochures actually. So we put a brochure holder on top of it, and we go walk around. So we do this at air shows when we go, sell our airplane courses. But I love using this thing because it's a great interaction with people, and we can actually hide in our tent and then just go and move around people. But my point is, this thing is the flight controls are reversed compared to a drone, and there's no way for us to change it. So in order to go forward, instead of going forward on the right stick in a drone, you would go forward with the left stick on the dog. And I did this for about a week when we go to Sun and Fun, when we go to Oshkosh. These are week-long events. And I use the drone quite a bit because it gets people to come talk to me, and it is just a fun thing to do. I came back, and then I pulled one of the drones, and I went flying, and I was like, holy crap, I'm in dog mode right now. And I have to reprogram my brain because now I'm switching between these two platforms. But it was so obvious because I did it for a whole week. I didn't fly a drone for a whole week. Now I'm going back to a drone, and then now my brain needs to be switched off. So if you're a police officer and you're, using the dog to go onto a scene, and then now you switch to a drone, if you don't have the ability to switch these flight controls, your brain is going to have to do it. So that's very important right there, that you have the proper training to be able to switch back and forth between those two.
That's such a good point. And even like, I know this is tangenting a little bit off on here, and I apologize, audience. We'll be getting back to more about the 107 and such, but with quadrupeds, aerial assets, ROVs, I mean, it's all becoming one entity, and like robotics and air, land, sea, like, right? Like, what are your thoughts here?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we see units now, especially with the dogs, they're becoming, the quadrupeds, I guess you can call them, they're becoming so...
Anytime I get a chance to say that word, I try to.
It's good. I like that. Yeah. I like that a lot. But they're becoming so capable. We saw the ones now. Unitree has the one with the wheels, and oh my God, it is so amazing what this thing can do. We drove one in Texas. They had one because we've had the dog forever, and then now I get to try with the wheels, and it is so capable, and it can go in terrain that the dog could never go into. So it is only a matter of, and they're becoming very affordable as well. The smaller ones are only a couple $1,000s, which is really nothing. They're cheaper than most blue UAS drones that you find out there. And so we're going to see them more and more.
I wish you didn't tell me that. I'm actually going to start looking this up because I've wanted one so bad to out here in Colorado to just go hiking with me and just.
The Unitree, the Unitree dog, I think, is like $3,000, and people are always amazed when you say that. But I think we'll see more and more departments using them because it becomes an additional tool that you have available and that you can take inside of a house. It can go up the stairs so easily now, and then just go in and look around, probably even quicker than a drone, quite frankly, in some situations. So it's a great additional tool. As far as the underwater robots, they're becoming easier to fly, or I guess they call them fly, but to operate. But in the past, I know I've tried a couple of them, and coming from the drone world, it was very difficult for me to just be able to navigate underwater because it's a completely different medium where gravity doesn't have as much of a play. So it was really interesting to see how things were moving around. But yeah, we'll see more of these for sure in the future.
Love it. Now, just to kind of bring us a little bit back, we were talking about NIST, and I have to say, like, goodness gracious, I wish the NIST like course and program and standards were available when I got started, because I had to come up with my own way to train myself and be fast and quick and be able to maneuver. And I was in oil and gas in a lot of these things, and try to figure out what to do here. And now, fast forward all the way to today, being able to move and be able to move that gimbal quickly, find the target in the bucket, all of this. I mean, you can't see it, but if you look outside, I have a NIST course set up in my backyard for fun because it's fun. And it also gives, when you're training like friends and showing them maybe how to fly, it's a whole opportunity. It's the real life video game in its own way. And it's not just for public safety. It's for commercial. It's for all of this. It's just a great way to really learn how to use your unit and so on. So awesome. But hey, all right. So with agencies like practically implementing NIST standards or similar proficiency frameworks with their training programs, what are some benefits or challenges you see with this?
Using NIST specifically?
Yeah.
The one of the limitations of NIST, I think, is that eventually you have to do real world scenarios. So I think NIST is a great way to get started with. It's a great way to do proficiency checks down the road to make sure that everybody's on the same standard. But at one point,
you have to do more. It's that first bridge, right, to the next, to reality.
Yeah, it's drone flying 101. It's the very beginning. It's kind of like, if I equate it to the airplane world, it's kind of like the simulator that we use initially. We do a simulator. It's kind of low fidelity in a sense, although NIST is not really low fidelity, but it's easier access. It gives you the basics, and then eventually you go to real life. So yeah, if you want to say low fidelity because you're looking at targets, and then when you move to a real world scenario, you move to an actual person on the ground or even a poster of a person on the ground. We've seen this in search and rescue, for example. But
those 2D dummies.
The 2D dummies, yeah, absolutely. And I think those are great. They're a great application. Yeah. And they're pretty creepy, actually. They're
actually really creepy.
When you see them from
the water one?
Yes, the water one, yeah, absolutely. But all these things, again, scenario-based training, SBT, this has been a standard word that the FAA has used for years and years and years in manned aircraft training. Scenario-based training is something that we teach flight instructors to do with their students. So you sit down at a table and you say, hey, we're going to be doing this today, and here's the context, and then let's go out and make it happen. So airlines do it all the time. They put you in a very high fidelity simulator that costs millions of dollars, and then they give you things that you can't otherwise do somewhere else. Speaking of sims, actually, I do think there is a bit of room for simulators as well, for doing things with drones that you can't otherwise do in real life. It's not as applicable, I think, as the main aircraft world, because like engine failures, for example, we could be teaching that in a simulator with drones. What do you do when you lose? You have a drone with 8 motors and you lose one of them. How is it going to behave and what is that going to look like? And then, how do you bring it down to the ground safely? Or if you lose 2 of them, how does that configuration change? As we get to more complex aircraft, there is more safety features put in place, but we have to know how these emergencies happen.
Totally. Now, could principles like crude response management, or CRM, and aeronautical decision-making, ADM, be officially adopted from manned aviation to single pilot, like operations into public safety, into UAS training? How would you say?
100%. They absolutely transfer. This is actually something we spend a lot of time in our Part 107 teaching, because this is one of my favorite areas, because a lot of these concepts apply to anything you do, and even in your day-to-day life. How do you react to an emergency? You're driving your car and something happens. How do you react to blowing up a tire? It's the exact same thing. It's all CRM. It's all crew resource management, or the FAA has called what, SRM, single pilot resource management, and a lot of what we do is in the crew, right? When you're flying, you're a firefighter or you're a police officer, and then you have a helicopter providing overwatch, and then a drone crew that's also providing overwatch at a different level. It's all crew resource management. You have a ton of people around that you have to deal with. You have to deal with the helicopter. You have to talk to them, tell them what you're doing. You have to do decision-making, aeronautical decision-making, ADM. This applies anytime you're up in the air and flying. So all of these concepts are not novel to drones. They're absolutely exactly the same. And we should definitely learn from aviation on that side. 100%.
That's awesome. What does efficient recruitment, training, and scenario-based evaluation look like for public safety drone pilots?
I think what you do for public safety departments is you take examples of things that have happened in real life, and then you turn that into scenario-based training. You turn that into something that can be replicated for new people that come in, and then you teach them on these real-world emergencies. There's nothing like real-world things that you've seen before, because you say, hey, this can happen. Not only this can happen, this has happened, and here's what we did, and maybe here's what we did wrong. Right? We've seen crashes that were recorded. I remember seeing a demo of a drone by a public safety agency, and it was a matrice, and they didn't lock the arm. So as soon as they took off, the arm folded, right? And then the drone came down crashing in front of all these kids. And so there's a lesson to be learned there. Obviously, you look like a dummy, but at one point you got to swallow it up, and then
showed everyone what not to do. Okay, I'm trying to
yeah,
help
exactly.
out. Right? No.
But checklists, this goes back to checklists. For example, checklist usage is such a big thing in manned aircraft aviation that every time you pull out a drone, you should have a checklist. We have a checklist in our more complex drones that we pull out, and then we have a person reading the checklist and then a person verifying. It's a two-person operation, but some of these more complex drones, especially the ones that we built, where you have to follow that procedure. It's not a DJI drone, right? DJI are very easy. Most simpler drones are very easy to operate, but when you get to something like a matrice that you have to assemble before you take off, you got to have that checklist, and you got to have a secondary person that goes back and verifies, and that prevents, what I just mentioned.
Are these the right pair of batteries, or is it one from a different side, or so on? Is the payload attached correctly? Yeah, there's.
Yep.
I had to
Your
learn a lot of
props.
these things in the field myself with up in North Dakota. Yes.
Yeah, I've had students put propellers on the Phantom 4 and don't twist them, and then as soon as they spool, the prop goes flying, and you're like, oh, what just happened? And sure enough, that's a learning moment, but it's also a flying projectile that is going at several hundred RPM, just flying around your face. So not good.
Circles us all the way back to meaningful training and all the excellent work you're doing here with the Pilot Institute. So another call out. Now, how can proficiency be measured meaningfully beyond simply passing a test or logging flight hours?
So that's a really good question. In my experience, flight hours is not always a good predictor of proficiency or of how good of a pilot you're going to be. You could be flying what we call junk hours, of just taking off, landing, doing a couple orbits, and then coming back down. You could be doing this for 100 hours, or you're going to be as proficient and as good of a pilot as someone who's done a variety of things during those 100 hours. This is actually, again, I hate always going back to the manned aircraft world, but it's the same thing on the manned aircraft side, right? To become an airline pilot, you have to have 1,500 hours. Are you going to hire the person that flew a Cessna 150 and did just burn holes in the sky for 1,500 hours? Or are you going to hire someone that was flying aircraft around the Grand Canyon and doing tours with people, or that was there's different quality, right, in the amount of flight hours. So again, kind of going back to NIST, right? You have NIST, you have standards, you have things that you need to accomplish within a certain amount of time, and that's your proficiency right there. And then checking a number of hours. You could be going out for an hour and doing a couple maneuvers. Does that mean that you're really proficient at the end of it, and that you really should be flying on your own? Maybe, maybe not. That's always very difficult to say. So I think the standards like NIST, where you have to do certain things, you can check them off in a certain amount of time, that is a true measurement of being proficient, in my opinion. And it might take 5 hours for someone, and it might take 1 hour for somebody else. And that's good. That's what we want to see.
Thank you again, Greg. That was a fantastic conversation filled with practical insights and real-world takeaways. From the importance of continuous training to the impact of community and standards like NIST, you shared a lot of valuable perspectives. And for those listening, there's more to come. Be sure to stay in for part 2, where we will continue the discussion and take an even deeper dive into drone operations and industry trends. Until then, fly safe, stay curious, take care. And that's a wrap for today's episode of Dronecast, rethinking public safety one drone at a time. I hope you found today's conversation insightful and thought-provoking. As always, we want to hear from you. What do you think of today's topics? Do you have any questions or suggestions for future episodes? Don't forget, you can reach out to us on LinkedIn at Dronecast, rethinking public safety one drone at a time, or head over to DroneSense.com/Dronecast to share your thoughts and get more content from the show. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing, rating, and sharing it with others who are passionate about the future of drones and public safety. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time.